Hey everybody, it's Mr. Kapaz here. This is my long coming Niantic Wayfarer video. This is all about how to pass the Wayfarer test and the kind of information you need to know when you want to start submitting your own Pokestops and gyms to increase um, the play exposure and the amount of play areas you have in your own community. Primarily focusing on newer to intermediate trainers who have never done Wayfarer before, never really done uh, Pokestop submissions of any kind. So we're going to get into it here, and this is all going to be about what Wayfarer is, how to pass the test, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to be writing the actual test in this video. I'm just going to be kind of giving you some criteria and notes, things to study for or focus on, especially when it goes beyond this to actually submitting your own Pokestops. To become stops and gyms. The first thing you have to do is go to the website Niantic Wayfarer and then log in with the same account you play Pokemon on through Gmail or Facebook only. And then once you log into the site, it's going to ask you to verify your location where you play based on through Google Maps, and you can also submit a secondary location in case you travel fairly often or have like a second home base or something. But the main focus on this one is it wants to know where you play, so that this is more for approving stop suggestions, like doing the actual Wayfarer. So because they want people who are approving stops to also kind of live and play in that area, so they kind of know kind of what is around them, so they can actually kind of approve them and on a fair basis. Because if you're from where I am and you're asked to approve something on the other side of the world, I'm not really gonna know. So let's log in and let's get going. All right, so now that we've logged in, this is the kind of the main screen you'll see. You won't see something exactly like this because this is kind of geocached to my specific area. But you'll see something similar to this when you log in. You'll see a Google Maps tag, and then you'll see a stop submission here on the right. This is kind of an example of what a submission will look like, what you guys will kind of be submitting when you do submit your stops, and also what you'll be kind of seeing and approving when you do your test, and if you decide to start doing Wayfair submission approvals. We have start training here on the right corner. You have let's go, a bunch of different things. All these different here kind of all go to kind of the same area. If you start training, there's going to be a YouTube video here by Niantic that explains what Wayfarer is. I'm not going to play this video here in this video, but you guys can watch it when you guys log in and do your own Wayfarer. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to jump into, on the right here, we're going to go to the criteria, and we're going to start looking at what makes stops eligible and what needs to be there for them to be accepted, and also what causes them to be rejected. So first, for eligible criteria, the first one we have are great places to explore. Niantic really wants us to go out there and explore and find new places and interesting locations. So some examples of categories that are acceptable: historic plaques, unique art, architecture, public libraries, public places of worship, zoos, museums, galleries, community gardens, historical gravestones. This is kind of a interesting one because we'll talk about later, because there's also some ineligible issues to do with gravestones. Gravestones are kind of a tricky one. Nature signs, and unusual or unique local shops. So things like corporate locations, like things like that, are not eligible. So like your Starbucks, your McDonald's, but your privately owned unique ones can be. Then we got some images here of kind of some examples of what we're looking for. Great places to exercise. So we got explore, we got exercise, parks and plazas, gardens, forests. Now this is kind of a generic one here. So for example, you can't just go take a picture of a forest of some trees and that's not acceptable. There has to be something more there. So like, for example, hiking trail signs, bike trails, some sort of a plaque. There has to be something tangible physically there that kind of explains or gives some info. It can't just be a pictures of trees for forests. Exercise equipment in public spaces, so outdoor physical activity areas, sports arenas, sports fields. Again, we got some nice examples of some pictures here of some objects that are submittable. Great places to be social with others. So pavilions, post offices, social or like just public gathering areas. So post offices, gaming and comic book stores, um, your kind of your local game shop, libraries, um, parks and plazas, fountains and water features, famous transit stations, popular restaurants, favorite coffee shops. And again, these have to be unique, kind of privately owned. They can't be like your large corporate coffee shops or restaurants. So like no um, name brand things. So like McDonald's and um, your other kind of big places like that. They have to be kind of unique, privately owned places. And then we also got different images here of some images that are acceptable criteria. So let's move along, and we're going to jump into acceptance criteria. This is actually what's going to be makes things uh, eligible criteria become actually acceptable. So let's check out acceptable criteria. Must be one of the three eligible criterias, like we just covered. A great place to explore, exercise, or socialize or gather. Uh, Next big one, and this is really important, must be permanent, physical, tangible, identifiable place or object that place marks an area. So you can't use if it doesn't look permanent, if it looks like temporary, so like a temporary sign for like a temporary market or like a food truck, because food trucks are mobile, aren't eligible. So it has to be like a permanently, like, attached, stapled, painted physically, like it can't move anywhere. um, the other big area must have safe public access for pedestrians, indoor and outdoor. So example, you can't submit something on the side of a freeway where there's no place to physically go to it safely. And then must contain accurate information, title, description, etc. So yeah, again, we got must be one of the eligible areas, must be a physical, permanent place, must have safe pedestrian access, and has to be everything has to be accurate. All right, now let's jump into the rejection criteria. So rejectable criteria, here we go. This is kind of the make it or break it for portal stops, locations, that kind of thing. So right here we have two good examples of not eligible criteria. Non-unique signs, so like just generic street signs, and then just like a painted object. This would be more eligible if there was some sort of plaque or information sign that kind of explained kind of what these things were, but it's just kind of a painted sphere. It's not really unique or anything beyond that. But let's take a look at the ineligible locations, places, or objects. So this is kind of the big one here. Again, the first thing they mentioned again was a safe pedestrian access. This is like really, really key when reviewing, taking the test, and submitting stops. You really need to make sure that it states both in description and in your photos that there is safe pedestrian access to the location. The location cannot be on private property, farmlands, or K to 12 schools, uh, rehabilitation or safety centers, and things like that. So yeah, no place where minors, youths would be, or on any sort of private property where trespassing would be a thing. Uh, Location of adult oriented establishments, so liquor stores, shooting ranges, firearm stores, or anything of sexual or pornographic nature is ineligible. Locations of objects of driveways that block access for emergency vehicles or places like that. So fire stations, police stations, hospitals. Hospitals is interesting because we have quite a few Pokestops and signs and stuff in hospitals, but I think this is a tricky one because you want to make sure that there's nothing kind of in where like ambulances would come in or like where like the ER is. So this is a tricky one because I do know of quite a few places hospitals that have Pokestops and gyms, even in my own area. Military bases, obviously, like I think on the exterior, like if along like the sidewalk or whatever, but like inside the actual, because a military base is restricted access. This also goes against abusive locations because not everyone can go in there. This is actually a pretty good example of abusive location as well because it's restrictive. Industrial sites, power plants, or traffic control towers. So other areas of that might also be deemed unsafe to go to because of like construction sites and power plants. So, you can have you can get hurt going into those places. So places that are also like unsafe. Um, like right here, temporary objects. So anything that looks like it can be taken down, moved, relocated very easily is ineligible. Sensitive locations like gravestones, unless it is a historical figure or like someone who's well known, but like just Joe Schmo gravestones, they're not eligible, and we need to show respect for those public areas like cemeteries and such, but not just tramping through them trying to submit portals and stops. And any sort of generic chain or business or infrastructure or franchise, your Starbucks, your McDonald's, your Dairy Queens, Pizza Hut, etc. These places are eligible as well. We have some really good examples of not acceptable criteria. Obviously, the boat, it can leave, it can sail, it can go somewhere else. The Christmas tree is temporary, it's seasonal, and this stone sign here, this on this pedestal, is in the middle of a looks like a busy road, so there's no safe pedestrian access here, so it's also ineligible. If this was off to the side, like kind of on like in a park space, this would be totally fine, but because it is in the middle of a road, it's ineligible because no public access, safe access. Um, Abusive locations. So abusive location means like this is kind of a trickier kind of one to kind of understand, but basically you don't want areas such as like the military base up because it's restricted access. So basically the location should be somewhere that the majority of people can get to with ease of access. Um, it has to be very open and public as accessible. Also, they don't want you to strategically put some portals where this kind of affects ingress more than Pokemon because of how that game plays, because they share the same portals. Um, you don't want it to be strategically placed where like one group of people can get to it and one can't. Like again, so like the military base was great because like was a great example because if you are if you work for the military and you have access to that base, then you can go to it. If not, and like 90+% of everyone can't. Um, Ineligible text descriptions includes emojis, tags, and other personal identification. The images literally and text need to be of the thing and nothing else. Ineligible photos. This one here, you can take photos in the dark. However, you need to have enough light to physically kind of show what the object is. This is not illuminated. It's very dark. It's very hard to see. So that's why it's ineligible. This is obviously a stock photo taken off the internet. This is someone didn't actually physically go to this location to submit this stop because it has this text on it. So this is not eligible. This statue here of this blue figure here would have been fine if this lady wasn't standing here. This is not the photo is supposed to highlight the physical object to go to, not like a person. Uh, this building here would be fine if the photo was not on an angle and also if it was in focus. This is kind of distorted and not in focus. The people here are fine because they're not the main source. And if you're trying to take pictures of historical buildings, they're in public. There's gonna be people around. You can't 100% avoid not taking pictures of people. You can't submit someone's cat. Um, this is just a landscape photo. This isn't an actual object or place or of interest. There's no sign here. There's nothing. There's nothing here that's tangible. And also, this photo here is taken within someone's car. It's very distracting. This isn't an actual good photo of the actual location. So if you're when you're submitting photos, get out of your car, go up to it, take an actual good photo of it. Do not take it from inside your car because it will be rejected. Abusive text, description, and or photo, fake nominations. Nominations with content that tries to sway influencers' votes, such as dropping a code name or code word in the title or description or the photo, making voting requests in the title, is rejectable. You obviously want to be very descriptive and say all the right things when you're submitting your stops to be reviewed. Great public access. You're basically like think of yourself as a tour guide and you're trying to sell visiting something to someone, but you're not trying to like sway or influence people by using code words and that kind of thing. The information should be very specific to, hey, this is a great spot to go. You gotta go check this out. So here we go. The final kind of general guidelines for submitting, reviewing, and everything else to do with Wayfair. Supporting text and photos. This is very very important, especially if your submission is in kind of a gray area, kind of like that, kind of like in the middle of the road. It's like it is eligible, but there's some issues with it. You you really want to make sure if you are submitting to be very very supportive of the kind of the key rejection criteria. I mean, public access. It's safe to be here. Um, Make sure your photos really kind of show public access and safety, and make sure you think about selling the location to like a friend, like as a tour guide. Oh, you got to go check out this place, kind of the historical information, as much like supporting text of why this thing is important and why it should be there and why you should go see it. Um, Indoor versus outdoor. Indoor locations are fine, like for example, like a carved statue inside a library or like a fountain inside a mall, for example. Even though these places have hours of operation, they're open and closed. They are open to everyone, but you just want to make sure that there is enough room for people to congregate and play safely without getting in the way and becoming like an inconvenience to like the actual operation of whatever the establishment is. Um, Sensitive locations such as like funeral homes, burial grounds, cemeteries, these things. These are just areas that we just need to generally avoid and respect. If there is some sort of a like I said, like a plaque or a statue or a gravestone for a significant well-known person, these spots are usually going to be put somewhere, or there's going to be some sort of a path or marker that allow public access to kind of go see it, because it is just a place of it, a thing of interest. Like, hey, so and so is buried here, or this. Um, so you definitely that's okay, but don't just go. We don't want to go traipsing through cemeteries, just taking snapshots, trying to find things to submit. We want to be respectful of those places. Um, so things like dog parks and other kind of like large area, like large field areas, make sure when you are submitting the geo tag for it with Google Maps that you really kind of tag like the entrance area or kind of the main area where the actual physical option, like the sign or the plaque or whatever it is you're actually submitting. Make sure you tag that specific location, not just like a general spot in the field of the dog park or whatever it is. Um, Waste spots within large areas, like you also got to be careful with these ones. Now, your object might get rejected. This is kind of more for submitting, but you just gotta be careful because like if it's in like a large plaza or like a large kind of area, like a plaza or field or eligible areas as well. But there, whatever it is you're submitting might also already be submitted, and there's going to be rejected potentially as a duplicate, or because there might be something else in that area that is already submitted. So it might not, because you can only have one waypoints for so many amount of space. There might already be something else in that spot that is actually blocking your submission from going through. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind when submitting in large areas. Hyperactive local businesses and the kind of local watering holes. These are generally acceptable places to submit, but you just also have to be very descriptive and kind of explain why these places are important. What's good about them? Why you should go see them? You gotta kind of sell them up to get them to go through because if you just say like this is Joe Schmo's coffee house, I really enjoy having coffee here. It's not really you're not really selling it if you get what I'm saying. So just things to keep in mind when you're reviewing and also submitting your stops, your Wayfair points in the future. All right, let's kind of go into here. This is kind of like the final kind of like um, pass fail. So for a high quality photo of a waypoint, so of the actual permanent physical tangible identifiable object or place marker for an area, well composed, the way spot or place marker is centered without too much foreground or background or objects passing by front. So make sure you really kind of zoom in and just take a nice tight photo of whatever it is you're trying to submit. You want to make sure your supporting photo has that object in it, but also shows the overall surrounding area to really show that public accessibility and safety, which is very key. Clear, sharp with good exposure. Show off your photography skills. Um, these are the don'ts. There's obviously a lot more don'ts than do's. Uh, Copyrighted photos, examples with like watermarks. So like if you're just take a picture off something off the internet, it has like that copyright on it, it's going to be rejected. Photos that are blurry or under or overexposed will be rejected. Includes people, body parts, or live animals. Pitch black photos where the waypoint isn't very clear. We saw that earlier. Make sure there's lots of light, it's very visible. Photos taken from a car where the car dashboard is visible will be rejected. Sideways or upside down photos. So make sure your photos are straight and clear, not like those crooked ones that we saw earlier. Exact duplicates of existing photos. So yeah, you're not you can't submit the same thing multiple times. Uh, Vandalized photos, so like yeah, like are going to be rejected. Photos with recognizable faces or license plates in them are going to be ineligible. We saw that statue of the lady who's standing next to the picture of the lady standing next to the statue. If you just took a picture of the statue, it'd be fine, but the lady's there, so the photo doesn't count. Photos of another location, yeah, so you can't submit like place X to be place Y. Doesn't work. So to summarize everything you do here with Wayfair and just gonna focus on like just trying to pass your Wayfair test so you can start submitting. Um, you definitely really want to know your acceptable criteria. These three things here. Know the difference between permanent and temporary locations. Uh, if at any point pedestrian access or public safety is in question, it's not going to be eligible and it won't pass. And make sure you know, kind of focus on as much description and like precise factual information about said object location. So really kind of know these acceptance criteria and what are your eligible, what things are legitimately capable of being submitted. And then, yeah, it's really just knowing your rejection criteria and like public safety and access is number one. Um, Making sure it's a physical and not temporary object. Making sure that nothing is on private property or school property where minors are concerned. Um, but yeah, really know your. I'm not going to go through all the rejection criteria, but yeah, really know your rejection criteria and really have a grasp of what supporting text and photos means. Just let me know in the comments if you guys found this kind of breakdown, kind of read through of how everything here works, what Niantic has here to study for the test. Let me know in the comments how writing your test went. Um, if you happen to fail the test, it's okay. You can retake it in 15 minutes. It's just going to tell you have to hit the books and study a little bit more. But yeah, I'd really like to know what you guys thought of the video and if you found it helpful. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to follow and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video or next time I'm live. Bye for now. Have a good day. Have a good night.